Fuck you
What
guys.
was that?
You can't hear me? Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah. I thought you were trying to say something. I don't know.
I've been trying to say something. I just don't know if like my reception's bad.
Yeah, it's all right. You can say whatever you want. Come on now.
You're talking about morphogenic fields. Like, what's electromagnetic about that? Like, that's not a thing that's electromagnetic. It's an
I'm back.
environmental. Okay. I was talking Daiso about the morphic resonance and how that's not in itself like an electromagnetic propagation per se.
Exactly.
It's really more of like an environmental driver that affects all life via life,
Yeah.
like having to adjust to what is natural conditions. So
Yeah, there is no indication that it has anything electromagnetic about it. It's just that, and it has more in common with the idea of the ether. Like Rupert Sheldrake basically says that memory is kind of inherent in nature. So which basically how does that even work? Like this is the idea of the ether, that everything is stored in the ether, in nature.
Well, I think a lot of people have like notions and ideas of what the ether is, but like unless we can accurately, concisely define the ether, then the ether can just be anything. So I hear a lot of people talk about the ether, and they're not all like in agreement on what the ether is. So I don't know. I think we need to be highly concise when we're denoting
that's
the
because
ether.
it was removed from the periodic table of elements like a long time ago, right after Michelson and Morley and all that shit. And then like the whole institutions changed, like all that shit changed in like the 30s. So, but I'm just saying, at one point there was necessarily more of an agreement. You know what I'm saying? Like I think now you're absolutely correct. I think the reason why there's not an agreement now is because of the deception around it.
Well, I don't perceive the ether as like a particle or a particle interaction. So
yeah, right.
To particleize the ether is just kind of like taking the bait. I feel.
No, but the reason why we are not able to understand it is because I think the methodology that we are applying is completely wrong, because we are creating all these fake theories and all these different forces for a single phenomena like gravity, weak force, strong force, and all these different things. Maybe we need to have an holistic approach to understand it. Like, for example, when you say that, when you ask the question that what is the ether, like, I mean, it's everything, like everything that creates, life or something like that's exactly what it is, like the quintessence in the myths and all that. You know what I mean? So that's exactly what it is. It's the field that connects everything. So what it is, well, I don't know. I mean, nobody knows, but still, the phenomena that we are witnessing, morphic resonance, electromagnetic radiation, not radiation, I mean electromagnetism, I think are nothing but different manifestations of the ether. That's what we could say, right?
Yeah, that would be modality or an expression of the ether, sure. But an expression of something isn't necessarily a definement of something, right? This is just an attribute of a characteristic this thing possesses. But the thing is what's in contention, and trying to accurately define this thing is the ether is what we're kind of setting out to. And you're right, it's all based on your methodology approach on how you're discerning this. Like, you have to have like a Hellenic, rational, Neoplatonic understanding, I guess, in order to synthesize and deduce like a logical, concise answer on the topic. And with that being said, the ether on its own without any expression or modality doesn't necessarily exist. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist outright. I'm just saying that there's no perceivable existence to be had until it's excited. And that excitement is the loss of that energy state. So what we prefer energy to be as is actually the loss of energy.
Yeah, but that is the only way we could witness it, right? I mean, it's just until and unless something expresses itself in some format. Like if energy has been lost, we can actually detect it. Otherwise, it's in a state where we cannot actually measure or do anything. Like I don't think everything could be measured like this. Like even when there is no such thing as a control experiment. It doesn't exist. I don't think there is such a thing. Every time we do something, we are inside the field, so our perceptions are always maligned. You know what I mean? Like we're not making an exact measurement. Like like for example, let's say electrons. People think that they exist, but I don't think they do. They are just a momentary calculation. You know what I mean? Like when electricity kind of static at a certain point, we assume that there are particles who are carrying moving in reverse or whatever to produce it. That's exactly what it is. I don't think they are particles to begin with.
No,
Do you think? They're not.
they're not. Electricity is not comprised of
Mhm.
electrons bumping into each other, right?
Yeah.
No, that's inconceivable. It's doesn't make any. Yeah, I mean Tesla said all this. Like it's the deformation of that spherical object, i.e., that electron, would literally collapse upon any disturbance. So it's just to ideate something like that in existence is like a farce, dude.
Exactly. I mean, so it's not this
Let me
particulate
go pull up
nature
this
of
quote
everything.
here on what Tesla actually had to say.
Yeah, the particulate nature of everything is just an illusion, I guess. It's just a momentary thing. It's not the only expression of it. Like they say that in mystical teachings and all that, that uh, what do they say? Like, vibration is life, and even Tesla said this, right? Vibration is everything. Nature is vibration. Solidity of anything is
Tesla
just a, yeah.
Tesla said to account for its apparent small mass, science conceives the electron as a hollow sphere, a sort of bubble. Such a bubble, such a bubble could exist in a medium as a gas or liquid. Couldn't exist in a medium such as a gas or liquid because its internal pressure is not altered by deformation. But if, as supposed, the internal pressure of the electron is due to the repulsion of the electric masses, the slightest conceivable deformation must result in the destruction of the bubble. And that was from Tesla's article, A Famous Prophet of Science Looks into the Future, from Popular Science Monthly. That's where I cited that. But yeah, so Tesla refuted the electron. And even J.J. Thomson, upon his discovery of it, called it a dicorpuscle of a corpuscle of dielectric capacitance is what he referred to it as.
Not a particle. Neither of them actually refer to it as a particle, right? They were basically saying that it's kind of a field.
Yeah, you said electrostatic, and that was like on par.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what it is. I mean, they're not particles to begin with, but the fact that these guys, these so-called, scientists that preceded him, they kind of, presented electrons as particles that create electricity by moving in reverse or whatever, creating electric current. I mean, the fact that they did that, they were trying to hide something, and it makes sense because that is how they do things, right? So if it is a field, which means it is being generated by something, a common field that is everywhere, right? So what is it like? Maybe it's part of what we call, well, it's the one thing, the quintessence, which is having different expressions at different points in time. Like the entire Earth is covered by this quintessence, and in different points, in different places, it kind of manifests itself, expresses itself differently. Is that why? Like maybe.
Well, electricity and electrostatics are slightly different in the sense that electricity is like the dielectric and the magnetic inducing one another, whereas electrostatics is purely dielectric. It's there is not necessarily a magnetic component involved within an electrostatic discharge, i.e. lightning. And most people get that confused. They perceive that as electricity, but it's in all actuality a dielectric discharge, which doesn't necessarily have a magnetic component.
I don't know, but lightning is plasma, right?
So it's electrostatic discharge, and it's dendritic in form.
Okay. All right, I get it. So that's my point. Like in all these different modalities, like what you're talking about is nothing but different expressions of the same thing, maybe. That's what I'm actually trying to. I'm trying to make sense of it. Maybe that is exactly what it is. We are just trying to overcomplicate things using science, saying that they're all different. And they might be the same thing, but they're having different expressions when subjected to different, kind of circumstances.
Yeah. Light, magnetism, and electricity are all three expressions of the ether, having different attributes or characteristics. And I analogize that to like water, steam, and ice being all three one and the same thing, just different modalities of the one thing being water itself, right?
Yeah, exactly. Water is more than what we are being told, right? I mean, this whole idea that water is just H2O. I mean,
water
that's
is
nonsense.
one of the most powerful substances in the universe, in my opinion.
I believe that water is life. Water is life.
Well, yeah. Water is literally it's a dipole antenna, which connects spirit and matter. It's the binding fabric between spirit, i.e. consciousness, and matter. Like you cannot have conscious life without water.
Yeah, human body is made of it. I mean, there's a fourth state as well. Like I don't know who did it.
All life. It's not just the human body. All life. You can't show me one life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing that is common between all living beings and not there in non-living beings is the presence of water within it. Like even the non-living ones has water, but not in the same way that we have. So I think.
And the funny thing about water is it follows the most perfect geometry in the entire universe, being the right triangle, residing at 108, 36, 36 degrees between its molecular makeup. So, yeah, that's that divine proportionality of that right triangle, that geometry there is the most perfect geometry in the entire universe, dude. And go ahead.
But yeah, when water get intoxicated, that geometry kind of gets messed up, and that is the reason why we get all these deformities and the disease or whatever you want to call it is just because water itself has been adulterated or intoxicated with something that wasn't supposed to be there, and it is when the geometry gets distorted that is where the problem begins. So
yeah,
water has
when you throw off that geometry, that's what you call bad water, essentially. Looking for another word I can't find, but to restructure that water is to bring its geometry back into what it was or what it's supposed to be.